My guest today is Paul Ihme, a cybersecurity professional with extensive experience in both federal and private sectors. He's the co-founder and managing principal of Soteria, a firm that provides tailored cybersecurity solutions and strategic advisory services to help businesses defend against cyber threats 24/7. Soteria specializes in managed detection and response, domain monitoring, and risk management for Microsoft 365 environments, among other things. Prior to founding Soteria, Paul held key roles in cybersecurity, including Vice President of Active Network Defense at JPMorgan Chase and as a cyber warfare operator in the U.S. Air Force. Today, we're going to be discussing what it takes to build a skilled team and exploring his experience with talent acquisition, training, and retention in the MSSP space. Thank you so much for being with us on the show today, Paul. It's a real pleasure to have you here.
Yeah, it's always good to be here, Chris. I appreciate the opportunity to join you again.
Yeah, we get to talk quite a lot. Soteria is a customer of LimaCharlie and one of our oldest, most valued ones, I might say.
Yeah, it's been a great partnership and a great relationship.
Yeah. Before we get into it, maybe can you give us a quick overview of your background and experience in the MSSP space?
Yeah, I'd say specifically to the MSSP space. Soteria has been around since 2014. We started off life doing a lot of consulting and advisory work and working in incident response. Really, we got into the MSSP space in around 2017, 2018. And, going back to what you just said, Chris, it started with, we actually did a bit of network security monitoring in the beginning. We built some custom appliances to tap our customers' networks and be able to keep an eye on those things. But really, when we started to experience success is actually when we partnered with you guys and started rolling out LimaCharlie and focusing on more of a managed EDR type of approach, which is where it started. So I would say that was, again, 2017, 2018 timeframe. We started building out that process. And the focus on our side was really about building maybe not the hyper scalable type of MDR that's going to be able to, cover a bajillion endpoints per analyst, but really focus on doing high quality detection engineering and high touch relationships with our clients. And that's been our approach since 2018. So obviously we've expanded beyond simply doing managed EDR. We've added some other capabilities that you guys have been kind enough to develop into your platform as well, pulling in logs from cloud sources and other sort of generic telemetry sources to be able to get a bigger picture and a more broad view of our clients' environments. But we've been at it since 2018 and growing ever since, and it's been a good time.
Yeah, no, it's been awesome to grow alongside each other, right?
Yeah. A lot of lessons learned along the way, a lot of thoughts and a lot of good times and a lot of stressful / confused times here and there as well.
Yeah. How big are you guys now? I'm just curious.
We're at 35, 36 or so folks. We should be at 40 here before too long.
Wow. What are the unique challenges that you face, or maybe MSSPs in general, when it comes to building and maintaining a skilled team compared to other industries?
Yeah, I don't know that there's a huge difference between what we face and what other industries face. Some of the things that we think about a lot, though, are we're monitoring a bunch of different companies' networks, right? So we don't have one tech stack that we need to worry about. We've got to really learn and become comfortable and proficient with a lot of different things. So we're not a company that just has a bunch of Windows devices, or we all work on Mac OS. We have to have a team that understands all the major operating systems. We don't have customers who only work in Microsoft 365. We've got some that are in Google Workspace, some that are in AWS, some that are in GCP, some in Azure. You name it. They're spread out. So we have to have a team that understands and can operate in all those environments capably and competently. And the other piece is we're providing a service that people pay us for. So it's not like if you're an internal SOC. I mean, you always have to treat everybody like a customer if you're when you're working in a business. But for us, we have to work really hard to make sure our customers know what we're doing. I compare ourselves a lot of times to a fire extinguisher, right? You have a fire extinguisher, you buy it, you put it somewhere where you can access it, and you hope you never have to use it. And that's the approach that we take, is we work really hard to be sure that we're not spamming our clients with alerts that don't matter and things like that. And ultimately, at the end of the day, if an organization is not having security issues, and they might not hear from us that much.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to find people that are capable and willing to find other ways to add value and continue to build relationships with the clients. That way, we don't go 6 months and, maybe there's been no incidents. They've gotten a couple of alerts and they're like, what are these guys doing for us? So we have to make sure that we have people who are not only technically capable, but also very proactive in finding ways to add value and build relationships with our clients to make sure that they continue to want to use us even when, they don't see us putting out fires every day because there just isn't a fire.
So how do you go about, you're trying to hire people with like a really wide range of skills. They know all the different operating systems, depth and breadth. How do you balance looking for those folks versus training up junior talent?
Yeah. For us, most of the initial hires we made were folks that had more experience. So I think that was one thing, is we didn't want to go hire in some junior talent too early and not be able to provide the time and focus to mentor them and bring them up to speed. And for us right now, we're still in that phase of we want to make sure that we keep that ratio right.
Mm-hmm.
It would be very easy to go and hire in a whole bunch of junior folks and just kind of say, like, go take your blue team level 1 and you go look at these alerts and let us know if you see anything weird, and escalate it to your second tier, whatever analyst that you're doing. But we've avoided that, and we're really work hard to make sure that we bring in people who have a depth of knowledge in our senior roles, but also screening for people who are willing and able and enthusiastic about helping level other people up, right? We don't want people who are, brilliant jerks to be blunt about it. Somebody who's amazing that can do anything, but they only work by themselves and they're not going to go out of their way to help anybody else. We look for people who want to help other people learn, who want to train or have somebody, sit with them, virtually these days and work through things and help them sort of gain that level of expertise and capability. And the other piece is a sort of curious mindset, like people who like learning things or who don't shy away from challenges. One of our core values that our team came up with is investigative, because that's something that people who succeed here tend to really have, is a very investigative mindset. You ask them a question they don't know, and they don't just say, like, I don't know. They're like, oh man, I don't know. Let me go figure that out, or let's go work on that, or I'm curious and I want to go kind of get to the bottom of it, right? So those are the things that we screen for and talk to people a lot about during the interview process of here's what it takes to succeed here. Here's what we expect of you and what we're going to be asking you to do. And it seems to us like you can do it, but you would know better than us. Like, are you going to be able to do that? And are you going to want to do that every day? Because that's what we're going to expect.
Mm-hmm.
And I think setting those expectations and trying to make sure that you understand the qualities of what make people successful within your organization, but then also, screening for that and not always trying to, get everybody to say yes during the interview process, like allowing people to self-select out because they know internally, like, I'm not going to like this environment. That's not me. I don't want to do that. So we can talk to folks about that and make sure that they understand our expectations and what they should be thinking about coming in.
Do you find that it's challenging to recruit talent given, the quote unquote shortage in cybersecurity? And do you have any kind of strategies that you use to make Soteria look attractive to potential employees?
Yeah, it's easy to find people. It's hard to find like really good people that sort of fit those requirements that I laid out and really like are a good fit with us. We've gone through a lot of iterations of these types of things. First and foremost, I think that the best way to bring people into the team is through referrals of our existing team. They know what we're looking for. They know what it takes. They know what it's like to work here, and they can talk with their folks or their friends and have an honest conversation and that understanding. We've got a really good team of recruiters that can help, that understand what it takes to work out here, and they've done a really good job of going out and finding people who fit that mold. And I think that's another thing too, is like having whoever it is that's doing outreach on your behalf. You can post a job on your website, but really to do well, these days you have to have somebody go out and actively looking for people who may not be looking at job listings, right? They may be at a job, but they're not quite happy where they're at. So, it's worth kind of reaching out and saying, hey, we're looking for somebody that sounds a lot like you. Would you be interested in this? But then, once you have those conversations, again, we really, I think, learned the hard way in these cases, not to try to sell a role at Soteria too hard to people. We want to be very honest, like, hey, here's what it's like to work here, and here's what we expect of people, and here's the opportunities that you're going to have, and here's where we're going and the direction we're headed with things. And if that sounds exciting to you, then you should come on board. But if it doesn't, then you should not come on board. Like, even though we really want somebody with your skills, we want somebody with your skills who's going to be excited about these things, because otherwise you're going to be, leaving in 6 months or a year anyway. So that's really the approach that we've taken. And, we've, like every organization, you occasionally miss on those goals. But every time you have to take a look back on it and learn from it a little bit and try to figure out what you can do better the next time and where you missed with those decisions.
I think you touched on it a little earlier when you mentioned the investigative mindset as something you guys really look for in candidates. How important is cultural fit in general beyond the technical skills?
Yeah, I think it's huge. In this business and in cybersecurity in general, it's a fairly stressful job that you're working with. So you got to like the people that think you're doing this stuff, right? If you don't, then that's a great way to have half your team leave if people just don't get along, right? And nobody wants to spend all day every day with people that they just don't click with. So that's something. I mentioned core values earlier. I am not a person who's ever really thought about those things too much in terms of core values. I've always been maybe a bit of a skeptic or a naysayer of those types of things. I think a lot of folks core values are something that they're lofty and people will like come up with and slap on the wall, and point at and use it to pat themselves on the back with, and using core values like integrity, right? Like, okay, well, I mean, I guess that's a core value, but that's kind of table stakes, right? Like, yeah. I don't want anybody in here who doesn't have integrity, like just around me in general. That seems like a low bar to set. But it was interesting because this was our team a few years back. They said, hey, we think that it would be helpful to kind of go through and look at over the last 8 years or however long it had been at that point, and look at the people who've really done well here and try to like think about what are the qualities of people who've like really exceeded expectations and have grown and taken on bigger and bigger challenges, and sort of codify those into core values, which I thought was interesting because it wasn't something that I and my business partner came up with on day one and just sort of like made up out of thin air. It was really the people in the company saying like, here's the people who like do awesome here. These are the things that they all have in common, and we should make those into core values. So I had not thought about that. I can't take any credit whatsoever for the formation of those, but looking back on it, I think it's a really good idea. And that's something that, going back to your question, what's about culture, that's something that we talk with candidates about during the pipeline. Like, here's the things that are important to us, and these are like really what our culture is built around, and these are the things that are important to us. And we don't want somebody to come in to just be a lemming, right? One of the core values is authenticity, right? We don't want you to come in and say like, okay, I need to bend my personality to fit like this, that way I can be one of the same. Because every person that comes in really changes your culture in some way, right? It's going to be a slight adjustment to culture every single person you add to the team, and you just have to make sure that those are positive changes and kind of understand who you're bringing in. And like, yes, this is somebody that we want to bring into the team, and they're going to change us and make us better, and not become a toxic sort of addition to the team.
And I think.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I love that you had the whole team involved in coming up with those, because I feel like there's buy-in then. If it was just something taped to the wall when they showed up for the first day, it doesn't really have the same meaning, right?
Yeah, not only involved, they did it. Like I hand on my heart, I did not touch the process other than to sort of do the final approval and say, yeah, I agree with all these things, and I think it's amazing. But it was like literally zero effort that was put in by me on this. And, other than supporting them and saying that, yes, I'm I'm good with this. I think it's a good idea to go through this exercise, but I can't take any credit for the actual work that went into it.
When looking at new candidates, do certifications and degrees play a role in like your decision making, or do you prioritize practical skills over that kind of experience?
Yeah, practical skills all day. There's education and certifications are useful, and I think that's it's up to the individual. Some people will learn very well through those types of things, and that's how they build up skills. Other people learn by doing, and so you have to have enough on your resume to make us interested in talking to you, right? And I think that's where a lot of these things come in, especially for folks who are very junior in their career. If you've been doing this for 20 years and you've got tons of amazing experience on your resume, I'm probably not going to even read it far enough to figure out what degrees and certifications you got, because I don't really care. But if you're very young in your career and you haven't done much, then I think that's a good way of showing that you've done some, you put forth some effort and you know some things, because it's hard to capture that on a resume without experience. So I think it's in those cases, we will sort of pay attention to it, just in terms of, does this person know enough to be functional, and have they put forth any effort to learn these things? But then as you get more senior throughout your career, we really don't pay attention to it.
Yeah, and those certifications and degrees really show an interest in trying to grow in this career versus, hey, this might be a cool thing to do.
Yeah, it's like some level of commitment. Like you've invested in doing something, and you've tried, and you have something to show for it. And it doesn't have to be those, right? It can be blog posts or GitHub repos or something just to show that you're not a person who just like saw I don't know, like a TV show or something, like you watched Mr. Robot and thought like, oh man, I want to get into cybersecurity and put your hat into the ring, right? Like, so something that shows some experience or some capability, and that can be certifications, degrees, or it can be other things.
So when you bring new talent on board, what does the training process look like? How do you bring people in and get them up to speed?
Yeah, we have a 30, 60, 90 day plan that we bring people on board, and it varies by the specific role and the specific work that they're going to be doing. But it's everything from schedule a 30-minute meet and greet with everybody on your team and get to know everybody, right? That's an easy one to check off. Look at on the NDR side, like go and look at X number of raised incidents that have happened over the past 6 months, and like really dig in to understand what's in them, how the analyst got to that conclusion. Go dig into some incidents that were dismissed or false positives and try to understand those. If you're not familiar with LimaCharlie, go to the LimaCharlie docs and go play around in our dev environment and trigger some incidents and get comfortable with investigating those types of things. Writing beside existing analysts to work through incidents for a few days, depending on your seniority level and those types of things. So it's a broad just sort of checklist of like everything that we do, even if it's not going to be your primary responsibility, spend some time doing that just so you understand it a little bit. And that includes reading reports from other parts of our business. Go read a report from our offensive security team on a red team engagement they did, and like understand how their delivery and presentation model works with like similar to how our detection and response team works and those types of things. So we're big believers in just exposing people to a lot of things. More junior folks are going to need more sort of hands-on training. So with those, we spend a lot more time just shadowing is the main method of teaching folks, and forcing them to document things. So go read documentation on this process. If it doesn't exist, go shadow somebody while they do it, and then go write the documentation for it. That way, like now we both win, right? Now you know how to do this, and we have a process for it going forward. And also just don't silo yourself. We really want to break down silos and make sure that our defensive folks know what our offensive folks are up to, and our technical folks know what our DRC folks are up to, and how all these things tie in together. So it's really an immersion type of strategy, I would say.
With how fast things change, do you have internal training, or do you outsource training to anybody? Like, how do you keep everybody up to speed on like the evolving nature of this thing that we're all trying to do?
Yeah. There's it's evolving is a nice way of putting it. Like it changes so quickly. So a few things on that one. One, we do a stipend for everybody. So if you sign up to work here, there's a $5,000 a year stipend for any sort of training that you want that's related to what you're doing. So that's the sort of formal part of it. But then a lot of informal things. There's Slack channels internally where people are just chatting about current events and changes that everybody needs to be aware of. We'll do lunch and learns. So we'll try to do those at least once a month, if not more often, where we'll challenge somebody like, hey, you worked on this cool thing, or we saw that you posted about this, or you were involved with it. Can you go talk about it for 30 minutes to the team and just make sure that everybody's aware of this thing, how this thing affects Soteria, how this thing affects Soteria's customers, and what you need to be known, or what you need to know as an individual to be able to internalize this type of information. And those are the big ones. And then beyond that, if there's needs that come up throughout it, we'll also send folks to training or try to put together specific events for folks, sending people to conferences and encouraging people to get out there and participate in the community is a big thing for us. But if we come across something and I don't know, we've got a need that we see coming up for reversing malware on macOS or something like that, and then we'll take somebody like, hey, we need you to go learn this thing, and here's tell us when you can. Here's some classes that we see, or some training opportunities. Let us know if these work for you, and let's get you set up to be able to go do that. So that's the more prescriptive type of thing if there's a specific need. But otherwise, it's a lot of that internal collaboration and encouraging our team to get up and share their knowledge with folks, either internally or out at conferences and those types of things.
Yeah, and that probably comes back to culture too, right? You build that culture where learning and curiosity are paramount.
Yeah, and sharing. That's the other thing. And it's a little bit harder to do that because people in this industry tend to be more introverted and not wanting to get up there and give a presentation to 30 other people during their lunch break. But it's a valuable skill, and it goes back to being able to communicate with our clients, and it goes back to being able to deliver another facets of your career as well. So we don't force anybody to do it, but we really do encourage this is a very low risk environment. Just get out there and get comfortable with this. That's the only way you're going to get comfortable with it is by doing it, right?
Yeah. Awesome. So it's high stress working in MSSP. I don't think anybody would disagree with that. Do you have anything in place to help prevent burnout? Is there support for folks when they're feeling stressed? How do you guys handle that?
Yeah, it's a hard one, right? On one hand, I'm we don't want anybody to feel burnout or anything like that. On the other hand, I have seen and experienced in my career people being overly sensitive to that. Mm-hmm. And it's one of those things if I come to you hey, Chris, how you doing? Are you feeling burnout? Are you okay? Do you need some time off? And at first you might say no, but then the power of suggestion is a thing, right? You can be perfect, but then I keep saying it, maybe I should be burnout. Do I feel burnout? Oh God, I feel burnout. And then you kind of work yourself into a spiral a bit. So yeah, our approach is first and foremost, you talk to people, right? And you don't ask if they're burnout, but you check in with folks and just see how they're doing, how things are going. And you can kind of, when you've been managing people for a while and leading folks, you kind of know the signs, right? You can tell if people's, demeanors change, or if they're starting to get a little bit slower or sloppier with their work or something like that. You can see those signs, and hopefully it never gets to that point because you are just communicating. And then a lot of it is just the way we operate. If somebody says hey, I'm woke up this morning and I'm got a fever or something like that, the answer is just go sleep, go take care of yourself, go do this thing. Or hey, my dog was at the vet all night last night until 2:00 in the morning. Just go take care of that, deal with it. We've got you. So a very cohesive sort of, we've got your back type of mentality on the team, and those types of things where we're not saying sorry, we've got a thing we got to do today and I need you to do it. So deal with it. So we avoid those types of things. I think we're pretty generous with our time off. I think we do 20 something days a year of PTO plus however many sick days you need. We don't count those. And yeah, just being aware of what people are doing And also, like, another piece of our business that I think is a big driver of this is on the consulting side. On the MSSP side of the house, it can be stressful, but it's for the most part pretty steady, right? You have big sort of surges in activity when you're onboarding large customers, or when there may be like a global security event happening, right? Your Log4j or your SolarWinds type of situations. But for the most part, it's pretty steady work. But we have an incident response practice that also involves our MDR team quite a bit. And that's something that we see like triggering a lot of burnout, or our consulting and advisory team that's going and doing projects for clients. They sometimes come to us with very aggressive deadlines. And you see people that are working long hours. And again, just knowing your team, being able to communicate with them and say like, hey, we see you. We know that you're working your ass off right now. And it's been like long days, long nights for you. There's a light at the end of the tunnel. You're going to be done with this next week. When that's done, like, go ahead and like put in for like time off and block off your calendar. That way you can take a few days off and sort of recharge a little bit. And I think that's another one too that my business partner, Glenn, taught me a while back. It's like, it's always good to have some sort of vacation or time off scheduled, even if it's like 4 months out, but it's always good to just have something to look forward to know that there's a light at the end of the tunnel where you're going to get to unplug. And that's something I'd never thought about, right? And I started encouraging folks to do that. Like, I don't care what, if you're just going to take off and, take 3 days off and play video games, but just know that that's coming at this point, and it should never be too far out. That way you've always got something on the horizon that you're able to look forward to and kind of aim your goals at and say, okay, I'm gonna get through this because I know that there's some break coming through, worst case scenario. And again, hopefully don't get to that, but it happens.
I was going to say, I might take that advice and book some time off a couple months out after this call.
Yeah, it really is helpful. Like I'd never thought about till I did. I started doing it. It really does. It seems like it comes quicker when when you've got those things sitting on the horizon that you're able to look forward to.
You mentioned that you guys are mostly remote now. I know culture and team unity and all that stuff gets harder through video calls. How do you guys handle that?
Yeah, I think I still wouldn't claim to have the answer for that. It's a combination of things. We do have a weekly all hands call that we do with our team, just as an opportunity so everybody can see everybody for a moment, right? It's not super formal, but we try to rotate it around and give everybody a chance to talk about something that they're working on every month or every couple of months. I mean, we do the call weekly, but we don't make every person participate in everyone, right? Sometimes people are in listening mode, but finding times for people to virtually get together like that. We also do some other things, and I would say that something that we've leaned into is like sometimes things that are just cheesy, and like, yes, they're cheesy and they're silly, but it's fine. Like, just enjoy it, like lean into it and embrace it. And it's one of those things that you have some people who are like, oh, this is dumb, but then once they kind of embrace it, the people do start having fun with it, right? Everything from like the question of the day, kind of, if you were to have dinner with any person in history, who would it be? Kind of like conversation starters like that, to doing like step challenges, like, let's divide up into teams and who gets the most steps this month with a pedometer, and you get some sort of prize or whatever. So doing those types of things, again, I'm a skeptic of those types of things. They're like, it's kind of cheesy. Like, yeah, it's cheesy, but it's fun. Like, it can be both. And so like leaning into those types of things. And then we also just try to make an opportunity for folks to physically get together in person when we can. And that happens naturally sometimes, where we need to go see a client on site or participate in some event or conference that folks are going to be at. But then also like full team get-togethers at least once a year to get people in the same space and spending time with each other. Smaller, like individual team get-togethers or something we're going to be working on this year, where instead of always getting the whole company together, let's just get our offensive security folks together. Let's just get our advisory team, together at an offsite and let them do some work, but also do some hanging out and those types of things. So it's a moving target. Always trying to find that it's never going to be the same, for better or for worse, being fully remote, but just always experimenting with things and trying and seeing what works and what doesn't.
Very cool. Yeah, we have a fitness channel on our Slack where we do the same kind of thing. It's a little more competitive maybe, but we're all wearing the Whoop armbands now, so we've got
Nice.
a team set up there. Yeah, it's a great way to kind of...
Yeah, I'm shocked by the number of steps some folks on our team take. Like it's like I thought I was going to be competitive, and they just like blow us out of the water. And we've got a thing hanging in our office now with like the winners of all of them, and you can tell every year like the bar gets higher. It's crazy.
Oh, that's fun. Retaining talent in cybersecurity is notoriously difficult. What kind of things do you do as far as helping people progress in their career, or other ways that you make them want to stay at Soteria?
Yeah. I think first and foremost, you just have to be a good place to work and be a cultural fit with the people who are on your team. That being said, there's like an ongoing joke within our team that the like it's a drinking game of when somebody on the leadership team says opportunity. But that's something that we talk about a lot, and that's that's the beauty of being a small and growing business, is like there is massive amounts of opportunity within our team to do anything, right? So we really work to not pigeonhole people into like specific roles. So if you're an incident responder and you want to go do like side saddle on a pen test and learn how to do those types of things, or maybe even make a career change over time, like do that. That's great. Like who wouldn't want to have somebody on their offensive security team who has also done forensics or has been part of an MDR team? You know exactly what we're looking for, right? So providing some career mobility there, but also just empowering you. Like, yeah, we're a growing business. If we're going to need more people doing more different things as we grow and continue to succeed. And the first and foremost, the first place we look when we need something like that is looking internally. Like who's already here, who could step up and be able to do this thing, and then only hiring from the outside if that's absolutely necessary for those types of roles. But promoting from within, giving people opportunities of doing things outside of their roles, making sure that unless some people like doing the same things all the time, but most people want some variety in their lives over some time span. So giving people the opportunity, like, hey, you've been doing MDR for a while. Like, do you want to learn incident response? Like, do you want to be on the team that goes in after the breach and helps clean these things up? Or, do you want to help clients build their own incident response plans internally? Or, hey, we've got a customer who wants some custom detection engineering work. Like, do you want to go learn how to do that and be able to dive into those processes? So finding ways for people to have some variety and opportunities outside of their existing role, we found that to be pretty helpful. But then I would also say, like, you got to be comfortable with losing people. We always want people to stay with us because they want to be there, right? Nobody's a prisoner. And if the only thing that we hope for is that if people decide to leave, we just want it to be like a bigger job, right? Like we want them to be advancing their careers and things. And when that happens, we're ecstatic for them and we're supportive and make sure that we're behind them.
Awesome. I think that's a great attitude for that. And yeah, I remember, the first time we had somebody leave LimaCharlie, it stung a little, but you kind of see now that it's part of the natural process. And yeah, especially excited for folks when they've, found a thing that they want to do that, offers them more opportunity or whatever it is that drives them in life. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. You have to not take it personally, but also use each one as an opportunity to learn, right? Like, is it because there was an opportunity that didn't exist here that should, did we screw something up? Is this not, or is it just not a good fit? Or is there just some external factor, right? There's a million reasons why people do these things and, or why people want to leave, and you can't take it personally, but you can use everyone as a learning opportunity to figure out, what you can do better to retain the next person longer.
And as a leader at Soteria, how do you see your responsibilities towards your employees? Like, what do you hold yourself accountable to with your responsibilities to them?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is making sure that they can succeed in what they're trying to do in alignment with what we're trying to do, right? So again, it's during that process of interviewing and recruiting, we work to make sure that we're aligned in terms of values, culture, and goals with what we're trying to do. And then once they get here, it's our job to make sure that we provide that pathway for them to achieve their goals, right? If they get here and they feel stuck because we're not giving them the resources or we're not giving them the opportunities to do the things that they want to do, then that's where we fall down. So, first and foremost, our job is to keep the business going, right? To continue growing the business. That way we can grow salaries and grow benefits and grow the team and so on and so forth. But that's more at the macro level. At the individual level with a leader, like team leaders and those types of things, it's really about that. How do we enable, empower, and get people to be better than they were last year, and make sure that they can understand that progression that they're making too, and coach them, give them every opportunity to do the things that they want to do, provide them feedback. Don't shy away from the conversations when they're not doing what they need to do, and help get them in alignment, and just make sure that they have all the tools that they need to do to succeed, which is a really simple thing to say. And that's really hard to do in practice, especially as teams grow and to get larger and larger. But that's ultimately the goal, right? Is we want everybody here to have a better career as a result of being at Soteria, whether that's because they stayed at Soteria for 30 years and they had an amazing career just here, or if we were just a stop along their journey, we want this stop to be one that resulted in a big step up for them.
That's awesome. If you could give one piece of advice to other MSSP leaders who are trying to build a stronger team, what would it be?
Yeah, don't compromise on anything with hiring. Our motto has become, like, every when we're hiring, it's always either a hell yes or it's a no, right? There's no like, this person would probably do okay. Like, we think that they would be all right. No red flags. They'd be fine. Then, when we hear those kind of conversations, so it's like, okay, so it's not a fit. And again, it's not personal with the folks. And there's been a lot of people who's like, man, I really like this person. I just don't know if they would be a great fit for what we need here. And for that reason, we're gonna pass on it. I use the analogy of dating a lot, right? It's like, it's kind of like dating. Like, you're taking the analogy way too far. It's slightly less. This maybe even more cringy than the people who like call their coworkers or teammates family, because you're not family. I don't love any of my coworkers as much as I love my family, but it's a commitment, right? Like, it's almost like dating someone, and now you're going to be spending all your time with these people and things. So, like, don't settle. Don't get somebody now because you need somebody in this role right now, and just say, like, yeah, we'll hope they'll work out. Like, take the time, deal with the stress and the maybe the pain and the angst of being short a person for another week or 2 weeks until you can find the right person that you're, like, everybody on your team is genuinely excited about having on, because it's way more painful for those people to not work out and then have to start the process over than it is to just have, like, an immense amount of enthusiasm on day one and just know that this person is the right fit for you, right?
Yeah, I think that's great advice. So the last one I have for you, it's a variation of the one I ask everybody who comes on the show. Do you have any predictions for the future of MSSPs in the cybersecurity space?
If you were to go by what I'm getting, like, the most calls for these days, it's figuring out how there's going to be a lot of sort of AI augmentation in the SOCs. I hate doing that. I hate how every conversation these days is an obligatory conversation about that. But I do think it's true. It comes from two directions, right? We've gotten tons of vendors reaching out to us about their AI, whatever, that's going to help us be massively more efficient or better at detecting threats or blah, 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 blah. But we've also got clients who are asking us, like, well, how are you using AI to make your services better? And it's like, well, like, what do you want us to do? Like, we've got real intelligence and not artificial intelligence. So, yeah, we can talk about that a little bit. But I do think I think that there's going to be a lot of really bad implementations of AI that are going to, cause undesirable results for MSSPs and their customers. And within all that noise, there's going to be some, like, really innovative and interesting things that show up that are going to help help folks work more efficiently. And I think, finding those tools that become more of a force enabler and something that's going to help people work more efficiently and better is going to be the the direction things are going. Is finding finding these tools and not like leaning too hard into them, but being open to what's out there and finding ways to leverage these technologies. Because I sort of as related to that, I think that the MSSP space is going to continue to grow as more and more businesses understand that they need services like this. It used to be MDRs were for very large organizations who didn't want to have an internal SOC, and now it's kind of folding back to every organization needs to have somebody watching. So the opportunity sets there is growing, and there's not going to be enough highly qualified people to do this job for every organization in the world who needs it. So it's going to require innovation and scaling, and I think that'll be part of it. That there's going to be some misses along the way.
Yeah, and I think those large organizations too, a lot of them are learning that it's really hard to maintain an internal SOC, and they're also going back towards the MSSP model.
Yeah, yep, they are. And I would say another thing that I would like to see, I don't know that I would predict that it's going to happen, but I think it's going to have to happen, is more and more tools out there exposing logs to be able to be consumed by MSSPs. And MSSPs are going to have to find ways to expand what they're able to capably monitor. When we got started, it was acceptable and pretty common to be a managed EDR play, basically, right? You could focus on that because that's where the ransomware attacks were happening, and that's where the work was. And that's expanding so much, especially since COVID, where so much happens in SaaS. That's where business happens nowadays. So I think that MSSPs have to get really comfortable sort of expanding their skill sets and their capabilities to not only like bring in different data types, but also understand and work on them.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for joining me on the show for the second time, Paul. It's a great one. I think it offers tons of value to any MSSP operators out there. So really appreciate your time.
Yeah, man. Likewise. Always good to be able to have a chat with you, man.
Yeah. Take care, sir.